My name is Cynthia Peña Ortiz, and I was born and raised in the Dominican Republic.
Hello, my name is Alexis Segredo. I am from Queens, New York. My parents are from Barbados, which is my mother, and my father is from Colombia.
My name is Lucky Malad. I'm from Alabama. My mother is from Côte d'Ivoire, which is commonly referred to as the Ivory Coast. My father is from Egypt.
So my name is Diane Eze. I'm from, well, it depends on who asks me. If you're American and you ask me, I'm from Houston, Texas. If you're a foreigner, I'm from Nigeria, Enugu State.
My name is Tyler Halsey, and I am from Alexandria, Virginia.
Hello, my name is Jordan Gaither. I'm from Indianapolis, Indiana.
I'm Mark Latham. I'm one of the professors here at Vermont Law School, and I am from Chicago.
My name is Fanuel Duchatelier, Eunice Itamar Alexandre, yes. I am from the beautiful island of Haiti.
My name is Admira Nkuka. I was born in the Republic of Congo, Brazzaville.
My name is Julia Minch-Rumberg. I am originally from New York.
My name is Laura Wharton, and my parents are from Guyana in South America.
Hi there, my name is Serena Tang. I'm originally from Arlington, Texas, which is the home of the Dallas Cowboys. Fun fact. My country of origin, or rather my parents' country of origin, would be Malaysia, but then my grandparents are from China, specifically the South.
I speak Spanish and English, and my traditional greeting would be hola.
Well, a greeting in French is bonjour, comment ça va?
Kedu kime, ibo kwenu.
Hola, ¿cómo estás?
Bonjour, comment tout le monde est? Moi, vraiment content pour me la jodi.
In French would be like bonjour or bonsoir, and then you'd say ça va.
I speak Swahili because I lived for 2 years in Kenya. So, mambo.
In Monikutuba, it'd be alo, wafaso,
Ni hao.
In our language in the Ivory Coast, a greeting would be "on le parle."
In Lingala, it'd be bote. Bote means hi, and then how are you means dengenini.
I do consider myself to be African because both of my parents are directly from Africa.
In an adjective sense, African means that you relate or you understand the African diaspora or you come from that diaspora. And so in that sense, I do relate to being African.
I consider myself African. My parents are both from Nigeria.
I wouldn't say I consider myself to be African. I'd say I consider myself to be African American.
Girl, I am African, bread, butter, and it's flowing through my vein.
I do not consider myself to be African. I consider myself to be someone of African descent.
Well, I do identify as African, meaning African American.
Well, I consider myself to be Black, African per se, not necessarily.
I consider myself to be 100% African.
I do not consider myself to be African.
I like to see myself as a third culture kid. And a third culture kid, it doesn't necessarily belong to one place. You're an ambassador of the world.
I do not consider myself African.
In ways, I do consider myself to be African in the respect that I am a part of the diaspora. However, I do not consider myself to be African. I consider myself to be a citizen of the world.
My ancestry dates back to Ghana, particularly Accra, Ghana, and my people were known as the Akan tribe, and we were sister to the Asante Kingdom.
My parents emigrated from Malaysia, and then my grandparents emigrated from China to Malaysia. And before that, we had been in China for a long, long time in the South.
We're mixed with Spaniard, Tainos, and African.
I know my parents came to the U.S. looking for a better life. They came here as students in the mid-'60s.
When my parents got married in 1955, my mother's parents, for almost 40 years, basically disowned her because she married a Black person.
My ancestors came to New York, came to the New World seeking opportunity. So they actually founded the New Amsterdam colony. They were part of the purchase of Manhattan Island from the Native Americans.
They brought Africans over, and there you are. Thus my people became. Now there's deportation and there's importation. So a group of people faced importation, immigration against their will, if you would like to say.
My family is, well, we are natives of Congo, as far as I know. I came to the US because my dad was studying here. He studied all over the world. So when I was 5 years old, there was a civil war in my country, and me and my mom came here.
I do know that my great-grandmother is half German, and my great-grandmother on my father's side is Cherokee Indian.
On my mother's side, from Cote d'Ivoire, they're indigenous people to that area. As for the Egyptian people, I know he's Arab, so I know we came from the Arabian Peninsula, but that's about all the history I have on that side.
So my parents came when they were really young. My mother was 19 when she came and had me almost immediately after. They definitely brought all their culture with them, the food, the language, the discipline.
So my mother has an interesting combination of being indigenous to the country of Barbados and then having that diaspora from countries in Africa. My father, on the other hand, is Colombian, and he was born and raised in Colombia. His family is indigenous to Colombia.
Well, I start with my mother's side. So the Cote d'Ivoire, the Ivory Coast, was colonized by the French. And it's had a lot of impact on my life because in Africa, it's alive and well with a European standard of beauty especially.
Even now, in terms of how it relates to Africa, China has kind of a very, not kind of, let's just say it's a very cruel pattern of taking over a country, taking over its resources, and in a way abusing the people and the land for monetary gain.
Why is it that we're rich in resources, but our people are poor? And that's because France takes our money. They take the money from our resources. You know, if it wasn't for Congo or any other African countries, France would be nothing.
When you go to West Africa, you notice a lot of the larger industries and things of that nature are still owned by the French. Is still owned by France, so there's not much economic independence. They have a good deal, a hand in our politics. They buy a lot of politicians.
Imperialism equal classism. As a result of the French colonizing Haiti, you have 3 tiers. You have the first class, second class, middle class, and then you have the bottom. And that is still exists today.
And even though we gained our independence, we're still not free. Our leaders are still puppets to the France, and I just think imperialism has messed up Africa, and there's been no benefits to imperialism whatsoever.
So both languages in Haiti, French and Creole, are both spoken, and I grew up speaking both. And some people don't know how to speak French, and if you want a decent work, you have to learn how to speak French.
Do I think that some people use religion to recolonize? I definitely think that, and I saw that even. It was really interesting because I wasn't raised Christian, and so I sort of came in with this kind of anti-missionary attitude. But what was cool was I really saw missionaries going places where I couldn't go as a Peace Corps volunteer. The United States government wouldn't let me go. And they just went there just to try to help them and learn to read the Bible.
I think that we see the daily effects of imperialism every day, from passed down societal norms that children and adults have been conditionalized to think and view, and based upon those concepts and those perceptions, deal with other kinds of issues like, is your hair real? Can I touch it? Oh, are you really here? Are you that smart?
I know that my grandparents, especially my grandmother, makes food that would only have been eaten through slaves and through slavery. I know chitlins is definitely one of the things that she makes that I know a lot of Black Americans, family members, especially in the South, have made.
I think that's affected Black culture today in that a lot of attitudes towards Black people specifically within the white perspective, obviously I'm projecting a lot of my own opinions on this, but I think a lot of those perspectives, especially for people who aren't, I guess, exposed to a lot of Black culture or maybe Black people, is that they think Black lives are expendable.
The fact that African Americans in general or people from the diaspora don't consider themselves Africans, I think that's kind of one of the negative things that happened from imperialism or colonialism, that there's just no sense of unity.
There's a lot of internal hatred for a skin that is darker. Usually, I remember when I was 5, I got my first perm. My family members from my mother's side strongly believed that straight hair and a lighter skin complexion was better. Because they were more Spaniard than anything else.
Going back to Afro-Colombians, a lot of those people in that country do not feel welcome. They do not feel accepted. They're not treated fairly, simply because they do not look like the other indigenous people to Colombia, or they do not have lighter skin. So their history stems from them having a path from Africa over to South America. And so you see the effects of imperialism, you see the effects of the slave trade and how it has affected people today and in several different countries, not just countries in Africa, but continents like South America and in the Caribbean.
Bleaching creams are very popular. Even after Nigerians come to the United States, they still believe that they're not light enough, even if they were light already. They have very European standards of beauty. I also believe that even the media in Nigeria, there's a lot of European media in Nigeria, and I think that's what helps divide Africans from African Americans even here.
And I remember I was in first grade, and it was the first time someone asked me about my race. And this kid came up to me and said, "Oh, are you mixed?" And I did not know what he was talking about. I had no idea. No one had ever asked me that before.
A lot of times when I was younger, people used to call me métisse, which in French means mixed. And when I was younger, I felt like it gave me a weird identity because when I'd be with the African sides of my family, they'd all see me as mixed. And then when I'm with my father's side of the family, I'm the Black girl. And when I was younger, I really struggled with who I was and what my identity was. Like, was I African American? Was I Black? Was I African? Was I African Arab? Was I just Arab? Like, I honestly didn't know.
I felt that I was raised in two worlds. My father is very traditional, and my mother's not quite traditional, or not as traditional as my father. So my father tried to instill very strict Nigerian culture on us, and my mother was pretty much the opposite. So it was hard, I guess, adjusting to both.
One day in about 4th or 5th grade, a kid named Alan Patton, who was a classmate of mine, who lived in the homes, a white kid, invited me to his house the next day to play. And so I did. And we were, I think, playing tag with some of his friends. And then one of them called me a spick, which I had no idea what that was. And in fact, they would say, for example, "Oh, I'm going to go tag the spick." And since I didn't know what that meant, I at one point was saying to them, "Oh, the spick is going to come and get you," when I was it. And later that day, I went home and asked my dad, "What is a spick?" And he looked at me and said, "Why do you want to know?" And I explained what had happened, and he basically shook his finger at me and said, "Don't go back there anymore."
At a very early age, I would see, my dad is a juvenile court judge in Marion County. And, you know, a lot of the issues that I would see, I later came to understand, you know, what it meant and its effects of imperialism and sort of how that plays. And so at the time he was, you know, appointed to be a judge out there, he was the only African-American judge. And so there's always the distinction between white privilege and then just, you know, you being black.
I think that awareness came early on. I went to a predominantly white high school. So I was the only one in the school who did not get asked out. I was the only one in my school who was told that you're the minority. And I hate that word with all the fiber of my being. I don't like to be referred as, when I think of minority, I think of minute, minuscule. And have you seen me, child? I am not minute. I am not minuscule. God created me wonderful. I'm fearfully and wonderfully made. This child of God, daughter of Zion, Phanuel, is not minuscule. So, no,